Well, good morning, everybody. I wish I could be there with you, but unfortunately, I'm teaching Cultures of Surveillance this morning, 9:30 to 10:45, and so I just thought I would make myself virtually present to give you a little snapshot of what I'm teaching this semester. So, Cultures of Surveillance, as the title suggests, is a course about surveillance, and of course, that has a kind of spooky and sneaky, if not creepy, connotation. Big Brother and the government is spying on us and trying to find stuff out about us, or maybe it's about totalitarian societies where people aren't free and where people can't have private thoughts and the government wants to know everything about them in order to better control them. Well, this class certainly looks at some of those issues, but it's concerned with more sort of everyday examples of the way that our personal information is of interest to others for a variety of different reasons. And that could be for medical reasons. It could be for our safety. It could be for first responders, for law enforcement. It can also include the information that we in the university are collecting about students, the way that we watch over others, the way that we want to be watched over, but also the ways that we use technology and how technology today, the smartphones in our hands, the computers at our desks, how these technologies store information about us and how we communicate and share things about ourselves online that could be of interest to people that may not benefit us and could be used in ways that we're not aware. So the course tries to sensitize students to the many different ways that their personal information can be obtained and how it can be used. And so it's an opportunity to reflect on our everyday use of the technologies that have become so important to our daily lives. We also take a look at these issues from a historical perspective to see when personal information started to become more widely sought after and used and collected, whether it's the origins of writing and the beginnings of civilization and the ways that rulers and states, societies have used information to keep track of workers, to keep track of farmers, to tax people, to conscript people into armies. And so we look at the origins of the ways that personal information has been used. We look at the history of privacy itself, from going all the way back to the days of hunter-gatherers when there were no fixed settlements, or not fixed settlements, but fixed dwellings, doors, windows, roofs, that sort of thing, to when people started settling down and living in permanent dwellings, and how that changed the way that people experience what can be known about them, and what other people are doing, and being able to keep tabs and track of people. So it's a broad class. It's historical, it's sociological, it's anthropological, it's psychological, it's even philosophical. And so it's a class that students can relate to because we're talking about their experience. And it also makes them aware of a lot, And so I joke around with them saying, boy, if you're not paranoid now, you will be after taking this class. But we've got some highlights that are pretty neat. We've got the co-author of our textbook who's going to be Skyping with us, John Gilliam, who's chair of political science over at Ohio University, and he's agreed to meet with us by Skype, and so that'll be neat. And also, one of the more exciting things about this class is that students will be doing a sort of public education project at the end of the semester. They'll be doing poster sessions. Each of them, they're in 10 groups, and they'll take up different topics, whether it's the future of privacy, or why do people put stuff online about themselves, sort of auto-surveillance, self-surveillance, what's the government? What does the government know about us, and what is it doing with that information? What do corporations know about us? And so they'll be taking up a variety of different topics, and then doing research on their own, and then forming their own opinion about the topic, and then sharing with their classmates and sharing with their peers and with the community at large what we should be thinking, what we should be aware of, and so it's sort of a public education event. And it's going to be here in the Slonaker building, probably in the courtyard. And Diana and I have been talking about when to schedule that. But that's something I'm really excited about and looking forward to see see what students come up with. And let's see. The other class I'm teaching is Bodies and Machines, and that's a course that looks, again, with all my courses, there's a historical, social, political, economic, philosophical, psychological dimension. In this case, we're looking at the human body and the way that we imagine our bodies, the way we think about our bodies in relation to the technologies that surround us and the scientific knowledge that defines the historical period in which we live. And so it's a broad survey course. We look at the period of early scientific discoveries of Newton, Copernicus, Galileo, the idea of the world as a clockwork, as being like a machine, operating according to laws, and the idea that the body itself is also a machine and that it operates in mechanical ways. And so we look at this idea and how it's shaped things like modern medicine and the way that we think about our bodies as, breaking down like machines, and maybe we have replaceable parts and that kind of idea. And we're actually reading a book about a man who was diagnosed with cancer and also had a heart attack. And he writes about his experience of being ill and what that was like for him. And he also writes how the doctors that were treating him looked at his body as being like a machine and as being something that could be manipulated and hopefully cured and improved, but that there was kind of a disconnect between what he experienced, the emotions he felt, what it felt like being in pain, and his experience, his internal experience of his body, and the way that his body was viewed by the doctors and the medical providers as being kind of like a thing. And so we're exploring how these ideas from the distant past, which were influenced by science and technology of that period, are still with us and still sort of define and shape how we think about the human body and the kind of challenges that poses for us. And so we're looking at that. We're going to have a physician who's reading this book that I just described to you, who's going to be reading it with us and coming in on one day and sharing his experience of actually getting a hip replacement. And so that'll be fascinating to see how he views the book and how he thinks about the human body, both as a patient and as a medical doctor. We also look at fictional books in this class. We're reading Frankenstein, really remarkable book for reflecting on early science. Again, this time a little bit later in the 1800s, when scientists seemed to be capable of doing almost anything, and the idea of bringing the dead to life and bringing to life a dead body in the case of Frankenstein's monster. And that book then becomes a jumping off point for reflecting on everything from transplanting organs from animals to humans to organ transplantation itself, to all kinds of new ways of thinking about the body and the boundary between life and death that gets redrawn because of innovations in science and technology. And so we then move on to another book that we're reading about electrical devices, again in the 1800s in the United States, electrical belts, radium water, all kinds of different technologies drawn from electricity that medical doctors and others were taking up and promising the public that these could really change your life and recharge you and whatnot. And so it's a really fun book that we're going to be getting into. It also talks a lot about the early history of weight equipment and training your body and increasing your energy level. And so that's a way for students to reflect on how we relate to health technologies in the present. And this is a class that draws students from engineering and also pre-med, as you might imagine. And so it's really a fun class for them to reflect on all these different ways of thinking about the human body and machines. And I've talked